A Norwegian company called Vianode plans to invest just over $3 billion in building what is said to be North America's biggest synthetic graphite plant.
A Norwegian company invests $3.2 billion to build this plant in St. Thomas, Ontario.
The announcement barely made a ripple in Washington, but in reality, it landed like a fault line under the North American economy. A Norwegian materials company, Vianode, has chosen a small city in Ontario for a $3.2 billion synthetic graphite plant, one of the most strategic clean tech investments anywhere in the Western world. At first glance, it looks like another factory story. 300 jobs in the early phase, about 1,000 once it hits full capacity. But underneath the numbers is a verdict. In 2025, in the middle of Donald Trump's second-term tariff campaigns, one of Europe's most advanced industrial players was asked to choose, bet billions of dollars on the United States or on its northern neighbor. It chose Canada. Synthetic graphite isn't a generic industrial input. It's the backbone of the lithium-ion battery, the single heaviest component by weight in modern EV cells, and a NATO-listed critical mineral. Right now, nearly every shipment comes from one place. Around 95% of global synthetic graphite supply is controlled by Chinese producers, a vulnerability that Western governments talk about constantly and fix almost never. Vianode's CEO, Burkhard Street, explained the decision in calm language that carried a sharp implication. The project itself is a statement in steel and concrete. Vianode will build North America's largest synthetic graphite facility in St. Thomas, Ontario. When fully ramped up, it's expected to produce roughly 150,000 tons of synthetic graphite each year, enough to supply batteries for about 2 million electric vehicles annually. Ontario is backing the investment with a roughly $670 million loan. Ottawa, through Export Development Canada, has signaled support of up to $500 million. The Canada Infrastructure Bank is examining additional financing. Vianode's choice only makes sense if the energy math works. Synthetic graphite production is extremely power-intensive. You don't build it just anywhere. You build it where electricity is cheap, steady, and increasingly low-carbon. Canada fits that profile better than almost any advanced economy. More than 80% of its electricity already comes from non-emitting sources. Hydroelectric dams in Quebec and British Columbia, nuclear stations in Ontario, growing wind and solar capacity across the prairies. Vianode says its process can cut emissions by more than 90% compared to traditional Chinese methods. But that promise only holds if the grid feeding the plant is clean. Without hydro and nuclear, without a stable long-term price for industrial power, the project would not land in St. That quiet relocation showed the other side of Canada's leverage. Ottawa didn't have to threaten. Canadian consumers and provincial buyers use purchasing power as a shield, redirecting demand toward domestic production. In doing so, they sent a signal to any American company heavily exposed to the Canadian market. If your business depends on us, you might have to be here, not just ship here. Vianode's $3.2 billion bet and Sourpuss's factory move point in the same direction. The trade war has made Canada more attractive, not less. The same pattern is now visible far from liquor aisles and graphite furnaces, in a South Korean shipyard stretching 5 kilometers along the water. Hanwha Ocean, one of Asia's largest naval builders, is offering Canada up to 12 KSS-3 submarines, with 4 delivered by 2035 if a contract is signed by 2026. These aren't paper proposals. The submarines already serve in the Korean fleet. The plan includes technology transfer, training, and maintenance infrastructure on Canadian soil. In late 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney was photographed walking the narrow passages of a KSS-3 hull, surrounded by Korean engineers. At the same time, in another city, Donald Trump was pushing an America First trade framework focused on reshoring and strict supply chain controls. Which brings the story to Washington, D.C., and a date circled on every political calendar: October 7, 2025. That day, Trump and Carney are scheduled to sit down at the White House for one of the most anticipated meetings of the year. Trump arrives under pressure from a partial government shutdown and criticism that his reciprocal tariffs have hurt U.S. workers as much as foreign competitors. His team points to tens of billions in tariff revenue as proof the policy is working. But manufacturing output has slipped and consumer confidence has weakened. As tariffs stack up and trade threats continue, the United States says it wants secure, friendly supply chains. Yet it is Canada, not America, that is landing cornerstone projects in batteries, minerals, and now even consumer brands. Investors are noticing. Governments are noticing. The question, as always, is who moves next? and how long it will take Washington to realize that in trying to strengthen its grip, it may be pushing some of its most important partners to build a future without asking for permission.